What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is Saturday, May 17th, and we have a three-game WNBA slate to dive into for today. So we're going to break down and analyze each of those games. I'll talk about which way that I'm leaning as far as the points and the spread, and then we'll also talk about any player props that I found for those games. And then if I put any plays in officially myself, I will have a link down there in that pinned comment, and it's going to send you right over to the Guy Boston Sports website, and that's where you will find all of my final plays. So, guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump right into the mix. If you can smash that like button down there for me and hit subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Definitely helps us out a ton over here at the channel. So let's go ahead and get into the mix, man. We got a great game tipping off to start off our Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. We have the Las Vegas Aces taking on the New York Liberty. New York is 4-point favorites in this one. We have a total sitting at 167.5. Now, after a video yesterday just talking about all those coaching changes, man, we finally get to talk about two teams that bring back their same coaches, right? Sandy Brondello and Becky Hammon of the Aces and the Liberty. We talked a ton about player movement in yesterday's video as well, right? We don't get to skip over that here. We definitely have some player movement with these two teams as well. We saw the Aces trade away Kelsey Plum and bring in Joel Lloyd in return. In addition to that, man, they lost their backup and locker room leader, Sydney Colson. She left for Indy. Sixth player of the year, Tiffany Hayes, is now in Golden State with former assistant coach Nakazi, who also left the Aces. And Alicia Clark is now with the Seattle Storm. She was a key role player, in that Vegas's last championship run back in 23. So definitely lost some pieces here in Las Vegas. But in addition to acquiring Joel Lloyd, the Aces will also finally get to see Elizabeth Kitley in action. She is the 6'6", 24th pick from last year's draft out of Virginia Tech, and she is intriguing, right? Vegas feels like they found a foundation piece of the future with her. And it makes sense. You look at her collegiate records, right, man? I mean, she's the only woman in the history of ACC ball to record 2,500 points and 1,500 rebounds. She also racked up 331 blocks to go along with 75 steals. All of this en route to 3 ACC Player of the Year awards, 4 All-ACC first teams, and 3 All-ACC defensive teams. Pairing her in the paint with arguably the best stretch four in the game, I mean, it's Asia or Fee, right? So, I mean, look, what a deadly combination that could be. Kitley and Wilson down low. Look, the more reps that they get together, it could definitely be scary for the rest of the league. With that said, though, I am concerned with that Plum and Lloyd swap for Vegas. We saw Lloyd play a lot out of position last year. That did lead to some decline in her output. I mean, she definitely didn't seem to leave Seattle on good terms, right? She put in a complaint talking about bullying and harassment from the coaching staff. Nothing really ever comes out of that. So hard to know what was going on behind the scenes there, but obviously not a good spot for Joel Lloyd. And after about 10 years with Seattle, she is now in Vegas. So maybe a change of scenery is what she needs, right? Like I said last year, we definitely saw kind of a decline in her output from what we've come to expect from Joel Lloyd over the years. But now she's on a team that has some explosive scorers, right? You have Asia Wilson, like I said. You also have Jackie Young, who can hit buckets and buckets and buckets. So maybe, like I said, the change of scenario, maybe being on a team with some other scoring options will free things up for her. Maybe her not having to play out of position. Maybe all of these things do factor in, and we see a more consistent Joel Lloyd. But I just think Plum brings a fire and an energy that this team is going to miss. And then you combine that with the leadership factor, coupled with losing as what Coach Hammond called, the glue piece, like Sydney Colson. Man, I just worry about this team and how they handle pressure moments or any kind of adversity that may pop up along the way. And I'm not taking anything away from Asia in saying that, right? She's a phenomenal leader and player, but losing two of your three big voices in the locker room, man, that's never ideal. Now, looking over to New York, looking at the Liberty, man, on paper, this team kind of looks even better than they did last year, right? There is some concerns there as well. We'll get into that. Coach Brondello returns for her fourth year with New York, though, and the defending champs are bringing back most of their core with some key additions as well that should help set the losses from last year's roster. The expansion Valkyries did pick up Kayla Thornton. She was definitely key to their run last year. Courtney Vandersloot did return to Chicago, with who she also won a ring with. The biggest loss comes from injury, however, man. Benaje Laney Hamilton is going to miss the entire season with a meniscus tear that she suffered in unrivaled play during the offseason, right? So definitely sucks for New York in that aspect, man. Vandersloot did miss time last season, but she returned in their playoff run, and her playmaking and facility is surely going to be missed, right? Thornton and Laney Hamilton both played vital roles for the Liberty in their quest for that first chip as well. Man, they were both huge on the perimeter defensively, as well as hitting clutch shots throughout that run. Those losses are going to be felt for sure, man. But like I said, the additions should help offset those losses to some degree. We did see New York bring in Natasha Cloud from the Mercury. I guess well, technically the Sun, but she never played a game for Connecticut, right? She was traded there in the offseason. But now with the Liberty, and she'll fill some of that perimeter defense and playmaking void, as well as bringing a new voice of leadership to the table. And then Maureen Johannes was also brought back by the Liberty after missing last year entirely while playing internationally. Look, she's known for her shot making and ball handling, and she is eager to prove she's more than just that, right? And she looked great in preseason. So these two teams right here, they met a total of 7 times last year. The Liberty took 6 of those 7 matches and did so by average margin of victory of just slightly under 9 points per game. The Liberty went 4-2-1 against the spread against the Aces last season as well. So for me, looking at the side, it's hard to look any way but New York, right? After dropping the 23 finals to Vegas, New York straight had their number last year, man. And I personally just don't think Vegas, I don't think that they improved this offseason. Now, I don't know that I'd say that they got worse, but I definitely don't think that they got better. You know what I mean? And I do like, besides the Laney Hamilton injury, which is concerning, I think New York just simply has a ton of depth, right? And I do think that they got better. I think that the losses that they have, the additions that they got back, kinda trump it, right? I said that Laney Hamilton injury, though, that is concerning. I look for them to jump out to a good start here, though. I really do, and, look to prove that they're ready to make some noise again, man, and that last year wasn't just this one-off, right, where they got lucky and, the refs helped them win the championship. That's definitely a narrative out there, so give me New York laying the points. I think they come out with a ton of momentum and a ton of energy, and they take this one here at home in the opener. And then for the total, I think 167.5 may be just a little high personally, man. We saw these two go 3-4 to the over head to head last year. And something that's standing out to me, man, money just keeps coming in on the over, yet that number is staying put at 167.5. I don't think either team wants to play at a breakneck tempo either, right? They both were middle of the pack in terms of pace last year. Both have an interior presence that they'll look to feed and work through in the half court. The Aces were more of a middle of the pack defensively last year, and they did struggle against the three, but New York was and looks like they'll remain elite on that end. And like I said, man, with the Liberty, it's the same with the Aces. Both of these teams are going to be hungry to get out on the right foot to start off the season. The Aces struggled out of the gate last year, so you know that they're going to look to avenge that this year and get off to a better start. And I think the intensity is going to be high, right? The pressure will be on, and we'll get a good defensive effort from both squads, helping us land an under here. That's my thinking. So definitely going to lean under on this one as well. And then as far as a player prop, I'm looking at Asia Wilson in the first quarter. I'm looking at her points, but I'm going to fade her. That 7.5, man, I feel like that is just a little bit too high in the season opener as we're trying to integrate some new players into the offense as well. And then against the Liberty specifically, she has had her struggles, right? We see her landing underneath this number in her last four, and then the two that she did go over, she's just landing over at 8, right? Landing on the hook. So I like our chances here, hitting at a 67% rate head to head. And then we can look at her in her last 10. We can see that she was hitting at a 60% rate, right? Going into the playoffs last season. Actually, this does include the playoffs, excuse me there. But then looking over here too at this outlier, this insight from outlier. Asia Wilson has failed to exceed 7.5 first quarter points in 5 of her last 6 games now versus top 5 defenses. So that's an 83% hit rate. And that's definitely New York, right? We just talked about their defense, and they ranked third last year in terms of points given up. So I definitely like that one here. It is juiced at minus 158 over there at FanDuel, but I think there's reason for that, right? Profit's profit, right? I say that all the time, man. You're going to hear me say that a lot throughout the year. There's definitely going to be some plays that we play that are juiced. Profit's profit, man. Next up, we have the Chicago Sky taking on the Indiana Fever. Fever 7.5 point favorites at home with a total sitting at 168.5. We got a 3 p.m. tip off for this one. It's going to be another good one, man. Scheduled makers knew what they were doing with this Saturday afternoon of basketball, right? Chicago had won 5 of the previous 6 head-to-head meetings prior to last season, but the tides have changed, man. Sky have fallen from contenders and into a rebuild mode, and the Fever have now rebuilt and look to contend. So last season, the Fever took 3 of the 4 over the Sky, and they covered in all 4 meetings. WNBA legend Teresa Witherspoon is out after 1 season in Chicago at head coach, and Tyler Marsh, former Aces assistant to Becky Hammond, will take her place here in Chicago. Sky finished 13-27 last season, but saw flashes from a rookie front court duo in Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso. Chicago dominated on the glass last year with Reese leading the league in rebounds per game as a rookie as well, right? But they struggled majorly on the offensive end, sitting second to last in the W for offensive rating. And they were also the second worst shooting team from the field. And those struggles mainly consisted from beyond the arc, sitting at dead last for 3 pointers made per game. They made the most shots in the W from inside the restricted area, but even still, they converted those at the lowest shooting percentage in the league. So, obviously, improving on the offensive end was a focus for the Sky this offseason. And we see their moves reflect that, right? Courtney Vandersloot returns to Chicago, the team that drafted her way back in 2011, and she's going to provide a veteran presence, a leadership, a playmaking ability that this young team was definitely missing last season. And then they traded the third pick away to bring in another vet and another champion in Ariel Atkins, right? And she is also just now hitting her prime. Atkins shoots the three ball well as well, 36% for her career. And Chicago also brought in some more vets that can shoot the ball well, Becca Allen and Kia Nurse. Through the preseason, we did see Coach Marsh, he moved Reese out of the paint and into more of a stretch four role. And honestly, man, if you watched my videos before, you know I love some Angel Reese, right? I think she has loads of potential, and watching her in Unrivaled and then in the preseason as well, it's clear she put in plenty of work to improve on her game. And while I'm not a huge fan of keeping her out of the paint primarily, because I mean, she led the league in rebounding, right? As a rookie, she was a machine on the offensive glass. So why move away from that? But I do see what Coach Marsh is trying to do. The spacing is great for the deep ball, obviously. That's what he loves. Moving Reese away from that restricted area opens up the paint for Cardoso to operate. And she also looks to take some huge strides this year, right? She just completed her first season in the W as well last season alongside Angel Reese. And then followed that up by a trip overseas to play in the offseason. Cardoso came back to camp focused and hungry. And Chicago, man, the Sky were a mess last year, right? Kennedy Carter was a monster scoring the ball at times, but there were clear locker room issues which led to her departure, and honestly, probably Weatherspoon's as well. This team should see some improvement, though, this season, just based off more stability alone and bringing in those veterans and those leaders, right? Man, let's look at the Fever though on on that side, right? They come into this season with such high expectations. And Clark didn't hold any punches, right? A successful 2025 season for the Fever, in her eyes, ends with a championship. So they brought back former Fever coach Stephanie White. She spent the prior 2 seasons with the Connecticut Sun, and then they added in 5 different vets who have all played in the finals at some point in their career. So Indiana themselves, they have not won a playoff series since 2015. That was when Coach White was still here, or the last time she was here, and she took them to the WNBA Finals. And their young core, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, they've yet to even win a playoff game, right? But the goal remains high, and it remains high for a reason. Where the Fever struggled last year, they've made the necessary moves to improve. So defensively, last season they were second to last in both defensive rating and points allowed per game. So what do? They bring in versatile perimeter defenders in Dewana Bonner and Sophie Cunningham, along with former Defensive Player of the Year Natasha Howard. Veteran additions Sydney Colson and Brianna Turner. They both bring more postseason experience as well to this Fever team, who did struggle against the top teams in the W last year. They went just 3-12 when they played against the 4 teams that ended up reaching the semifinals of last year's postseason. Thing is last year's team was much younger, and Clark spent the better half of the first half of the season just basically getting her ass kicked every game, right? I mean, man, did the rest of the league just really have a chip on their shoulder towards Caitlin Clark to start off the season, man? They got to her mentally a little bit. They almost broke her down, right? But look, she ain't no slouch. She picked herself up. She dusted herself off. She finished out the year leading the league in assists in her rookie season, landing on the All Star team, winning Rookie of the Year, and also made the All WNBA first team. So, with the improvements that we can expect to see from Clark in year two, because you know she ain't going to settle. You know she's coming back better. Come on, man. Even if you're a Clark hater, you know she's coming back better this year. And along with all the talent that the Fever have brought in as well, I like the Fever to be much more competitive against the upper echelon of the W this season also. They finished out the year at 500 last season, right? 20-20, but let's not forget the run that they went on to get there. The Fever closed out the regular season as one of the hottest teams in the W. They went 17-10 to close out the year, and that was after starting the season 3-10. So all that said, man, I like Indiana to roll here at home. I think Chicago's going to keep this one close early. The intensity between these two squads is always crazy high when they meet. And I think there's a lot of talent on that Chicago side of the ball as well. But ultimately, Indiana is just loaded with talent, right? And it's just simply going to be too much for the Sky down the stretch. So I'm leaning towards laying the points with the Fever here at home in front of that raucous crowd. The season opener, they've just been waiting and waiting and waiting, and there's so much hype around this team. And then for the total, we saw these two hit over this number at a 75% rate last season. The line opened up at 167.5, and it has moved up a point. I'm hesitant to pull the trigger here, though, as honestly looking at this total feels like a matter of which improvements on which side do you trust more, Indy's defense or Chicago's offense? Because we saw both sides improve in the offseason, right? For me, it would be the former and lead me towards an under. I'm going to trust that Indiana defense over the Chicago offense. But the market seems to be disagreeing just a little bit, right? And playing unders in fever games last year was basically like wrapping up your money and handing it off to an Amazon delivery driver and being like, "Hey, can you get this to Vegas for me?" So I'll most likely stay away from the total here in this one, but if I'm going to lean anywhere, it would be towards the under. Then as far as a player prop is concerned, I am looking at Angel Reese, and this is crazy. I'm looking to fade Angel Reese on the rebounds to start off the season, right? After just talking about how much of a monster she was on the glass. But also, we did mention how she has been utilized in a stretch four role for the most part so far. Um, you know, and this could be risky, this could just be something that he was trying out in the preseason, and then we see her just go right back down into the paint once the regular season opens up, right? But we look at her head-to-head against the Fever, and while she's landing right there on the hook, she did land underneath this line, 3 of the 4 times that they played. Like I said, it is close, 13, 13, and then she did get over at 16 there, and then down at 11, right? She's still in double digits, but the Fever did rank 4th in rebounds last season, and I do think that that number will stay right around there, if not improve just a little bit as well, with the additions that they have brought in. Um, but man, this is sitting at minus 150. It's definitely juiced for a reason. I think the books are thinking the same thing as me, and I think that they have that over 13.5. It's probably at plus money. Yeah, plus 125. That's going to entice a lot of people that don't really pay too deep attention to things, right? And they're just like, Angel Reese, she gets a ton of rebounds. So I don't know, man. I'm leaning towards the under here in this one, under 13.5. I think that is a pretty, it's Angel Reese, I get it, but it is still a pretty high number to start off the season with as far as rebounds are concerned. So that's definitely the way that I'm looking in this one here. Then our last game on the slate, we are looking at that 10 p.m. tip-off game. Seattle Storm taking on the Phoenix Mercury. Storm are 1.5-point favorites here on the road. We have a total sitting at 161.5. And we saw the Mercury open up as favorites in this one, but that has since flipped to the Storm side. I'm gonna tell you why. It's because my favorite player, Kyle Copper's not playing in this one, man. Seattle, you have been spared. Nah, but seriously, man, big blow for Phoenix, who is also down Natasha Mack. The Storm come into this one with a trio of ACL injuries on their side. Katie Lou Samuelson, Nika Mule, Jordan Horston. Look, they're all going to miss the season with an ACL injury. So sucks for Seattle on that side. And like, what kind of weird coincidence, man, that they just all three go down with ACLs, right? The Mercury will look a lot different than they have in recent years, too. Longtime vet and Mercury lifer Brittany Griner is gone. She has departed for Atlanta. And WNBA legend Diana Taurasi retired after 20 years, all of them with Phoenix. They also sent out Natasha Cloud through trade, like we talked about earlier. But with that, that brought in star and Swiss Army knife Alyssa Thomas, man. And she's shown throughout her career the ability to affect games in so many different ways. Look, I always call her the Draymond Green of the WNBA, and just, like minus all the head case issues that man can be at times, right? But she put up over 10 points per game and 8 rebounds per game last year to go along with just under 8 assists per games. She's a 6-time All Defensive Team member. She's been a leader throughout her career as well, right? And she's been a winner. And just can't get over the hump, man. She's been so close to a championship so many times throughout her career, but just can't quite get there, right? And that was a big reason for her coming to Phoenix. This is a storied franchise that has, they've won it all multiple times, and that's the last thing that's left on the agenda for her. Phoenix also brought in Satu Sabali from Dallas. She's a stretch four with a beautiful jumper. And when she gets it going, man, she can really, really hurt you from deep. The only problem is Sabali has been hampered by injury for much of her young career. And Phoenix, as well as herself, they're banking on a healthy season for just the second time in what's going to be her 6th season in the league. But man, when she's healthy, she's the definition of a unicorn, right? Playing and defending from any position while standing at 6'4". And like I said, one of the sweetest jumpers that you're going to see in the league. In the one fully healthy season of her career so far, we saw her go for 18 and 8, dish out 4 assists per game, and along with just under 2 steals per game. She won the Most Improved Player of the Year award. She made the All-Star team. She made the All WNBA first team, and she finished fifth in MVP voting. Like she's kind of good. And then when she returns, Kai will round out this newly formed Big Three, which can't come soon enough if you're the Mercury, right? Forming this Big Three automatically puts Phoenix in the combo as a team that you can't count out. I mean, it's like a Big Three of Thomas, Sabali, and Popper. Man, that's like it's what you dream of, right? That they complement each other's games so well on paper, anyways. Of course, we're gonna have to wait to see this in action to accurately judge that, but on paper, this looks beautiful. But the thing is, outside of that Big Three, Phoenix just kind of desperately lacks depth. And although they've played more of a positionless offense throughout training camp and into this opener here, I do have concerns about their lack of talent at the point guard position as well. Thomas can control the rock, so maybe that's the thinking there. They do have Celeste Taylor, but relying on Celeste Taylor or even Alyssa Thomas for the majority of the game, I don't know. It doesn't seem ideal. Kind of expected them to make a just some kind of a move, man, pick somebody up off of waivers. There's so many players that were cut, coming into the regular season. So just to come into this season with, like I said, little depth, really throughout the roster, but especially at the point guard position, is definitely concerning. Then looking over there at the Storm, man, they look to bounce back after what was an up and down season last year. I saw them bow out in the first round. Joel Lloyd is out, as we spoke of earlier, now a member of the Aces. And while the Storm didn't really make a major splash in free agency, I do like this roster, man, and I like their potential this season. Skylar Diggins Smith, she said it herself that this is the most talented roster that she's played with in her career, and that kind of gave me a chuckle at first, right? But she's not all that crazy once you start breaking things down. You start looking at the roster, the team. This is going to be Coach Quinn's second season with Seattle. And besides Lloyd, they've retained much of their rotation from last year. Diggins Smith last year was coming back from giving birth, and she didn't really catch her rhythm until midway through the year. Gabby Williams joined the team after the Olympic break. So having her from the beginning of training camp this year is going to be huge as well. Nneka Ogumike, Ezi Magbagor, they remain in the front court as well. You know, those twin towers, along with now a 6'6", 19-year-old rookie out of France, Dominique Malanga. Look, fans will or already have fell in love with her for her ability to play above the rim, right? But she has the potential to be great, in my opinion. She can play the game at all three levels. Look, I'm like stuttering over my words, thinking about like she is phenomenal, y'all. Go look up some of the highlights of her, and just remember that she's 19. You know, look at that shooting form, the jumper on it, like could definitely just be something crazy special, man. And then Seattle was an excellent defensive team last season. You know, they can't take that away from them whatsoever. They had their struggles offensively at times. Defensively, they were elite. And then throw Malanga in the mix down low with an already elite rim protector and defender like Magbagor, man, it almost feels like cheating, right? So with the lack of depth for Phoenix and then the hiccups that should be expected with a team that has so many new faces, gotta look Seattle's way here, right? They not only do have depth, but also continuity within the roster and the coaching staff that they can lean on. So give me Seattle here in this one. And then the total, man, it's on the lower end for sure, but this should be expected for Seattle and the defense that we can expect them to play. So these two hit the under these two hit under this line in 3 of the 4 last season that they played, and then we've seen the under itself hit in 5 straight meetings between these 2 teams. Look, I think defense is gonna be the name of the game in this one, and expect improvement on that end from Phoenix as well this season, right? So, I'll look to the under here in this one. And as far as a player prop, I got one that I've already put in here. I'm looking at Nneka Ogumike for points, rebounds, and assists. Taking the under 28.5. I got that at -120 over there at BetMGM. Now, guys, I am a little worried. I'm not going to hold you, right? Yeah, full transparency over here always. The numbers are excellent. It's excellent. It's almost so excellent that it almost feels like, okay, something seems a little fishy here. Am I falling right into a trap, right? Because last 10, close out the regular season last year, she hit this at a 90% rate. You can push it back further. Over 20 games, she hit it at a 75% rate. Over the course of the entire season, we're still pretty much in the green, right? Hitting at just under 70%. Okay, like I said, these numbers look great. Head to head, still clearing this number at a 100% hit rate, which kind of offsets this red over here that we see from Phoenix and their defensive struggles last season, ninth in points, 12th in rebounds, and 11 in assists. Then you come over here and you see that she still was landing underneath that number, right? Then we come up here and look at this insight here from Outlier. She has failed to exceed 27.5 points plus rebounds plus assists in 9 of her last 10 games. She's actually averaging just 23.7 points plus rebounds plus assists. So 90% hit rate in the last 10 games there, coming in underneath that line. It says 27.5. We're actually looking at it 28.5. But if we come down here and look, we can still see that she has cleared coming underneath that 28.5 line at still a 90% rate in the last 10 games. So, all right, guys, that's going to wrap it up here for another video. I hope you guys enjoyed the content today. I hope you found it helpful and useful. And if you did, please do not forget to hit that like button down there and hit subscribe. And that's going to do it, man. I will see you guys back tomorrow. We'll go over what we did here in today's video. We'll also recap opening night's picks as well. And let's have a great day, man. I hope you guys cash out. See you tomorrow.